All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Food Allergy Awareness Week. I'm so excited it's finally here. And here to celebrate with me and co-hosting Ask the Expert is my colleague, Bob Earl. Hi, Bob. Happy Food Allergy Awareness Week.
Hey, Tiffany. I'm happy to be here as well, celebrating Food Allergy Awareness Week with you.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's get things started. Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to food allergies?
Certainly. I personally do not have a food allergy, but I have some family members and a number of friends that have food allergy. And I started working on the food allergy issue from more the food industry and consumer communication side about 27 years ago, and have been at it in food industry associations and with food companies. And then I got this wonderful opportunity to come to work at FAIR.
Well, 27 years ago. That's a long time in this space. That's awesome. We're so lucky to have you here.
So, what about your background to food allergies, Tiffany?
I also don't have food allergies, but I am a registered dietitian and you are too.
That's right.
And in a previous role, I was helping students on a college campus navigate their options in dining facilities and accommodations through housing and residence life. And I utilized so many of FAIR's resources that it seemed like a natural transition into this role. I've only been here for 2 years, or I've been here for already 2 years, but whichever way. Actually, this week is my 2 year anniversary. So it's very fitting. Um, and I've learned a ton since I've been here. I've also since had a baby, and we feed him the allergens as part of, food allergy prevention. Every week he gets a little bit of peanut butter, he gets some of the nut butters mixed in, or on crackers, and he is enjoying his journey with food. I am just cleaning up a lot of messes, but it's definitely been an adventure. And FAIR is such a good resource, for all ages, but it's been really helpful for me with my son. So
And how has that been working out, Tiffany? Has he tolerated it all very well?
so far, yeah, so far he has had, one or two, I would say, contact rashes on his face from various foods. But as we know, food allergies are reproducible, and we haven't been able to pinpoint anything specific. So right now, we're just proceeding as usual. And every day he gets some yogurt. And like I said, the peanuts, tree nuts, he gets, mashed soybeans. And he is one now, so he can have, more adult like foods. Which has also been fun to, feed him off of our plate, which is great. So yeah, so far
Glad
he's
that
tolerating
glad
everything.
glad that worked out so well.
Yeah,
Real
me too.
important, a real important thing, and I'm sure we may get some questions about it and have some further discussion. But one of my visions would be to see food allergy, at least in the infant and childhood population, by feeding food allergens early in small amounts. I'd love to see food allergy go away in a generation.
Yeah, I mean that would be awesome if we could prevent food allergies. Plus those, peanut snacks are quite delicious. So it's not hard to feed him the little peanut puffs. Oh, we did get a question already, and it's related to early introduction. So if you don't mind, let's just jump right in here.
Absolutely.
The question for me is, in your early introduction journey, did you include shellfish? And I did. I included shrimp. He's had shrimp maybe 4 separate times. So we don't do it as regularly as peanuts or tree nuts. He gets those, twice a week at minimum. Sesame also, we mix in tahini with a lot of his foods, or hummus. Um, but we did introduce shellfish. I personally don't eat actually, I don't eat any fish, just as a personal preference. So it's harder for me to introduce foods that I don't regularly cook. So it's really contingent on when my husband wants, shellfish, or he makes salmon. Um, or if we're at my parents' house and they have, shrimp cocktail or something. So it has been harder for me to introduce shellfish, but it isn't something that I didn't do. So thank you for that question. He's
So,
had,
Tiffany, can you tell the audience the full range of food allergens that you've introduced to your little one?
yeah, we started with peanuts, but in the form of peanut butter. Obviously, peanuts are a choking hazard. So we did thin peanut butter. We've done cashew butter, walnut butter, almond butter, and actually Trader Joe's has a mixed nut butter that we've used because that even has Brazil nuts in there. I think pistachios. I can't remember if macadamia nuts are in there, but it does have a whole suite of them. He's had shellfish, he's had salmon, he's had soybeans, milk, yeah, milk in all kinds of forms. The kid loves mozzarella cheese. He loves yogurt. His yogurt almost every day, plain whole milk cow's yogurt. Sesame in the form of tahini usually, or if it's either it's a homemade hummus or if I get hummus at the store. I am mindful of, sodium content in some of those prepackaged things, but what am I missing? Bread. He loves bread. I'm from New Jersey, so if he didn't like bread or pizza, it would be tricky. But yeah, he's had all bagels. We actually gave him cake for his birthday, and he basically threw it on the ground in favor of a bagel. So
wow,
that was great. He's had eggs, but he doesn't really like the taste of eggs, so sometimes I hard boil them. And use the egg white in a puree, or I guess you could make French toast. Just another way to kind of incorporate eggs into their diet. And am I missing anything?
I think you covered.
I kind of jumped around, but
I think you caught everything.
Yeah, he's had them all. Mm-hmm.
Another question: What is his favorite vehicle that you mix the food allergens in? Do you use vegetable puree or on yogurts? What he likes the best?
Yogurt is his favorite. I tried to do a little bit of baby-led weaning. He didn't really catch on as quickly. Maybe I just needed a little bit more patience, but because I was anxious to introduce the allergens, using the purees was easier for me. And I would say that yogurt is the easiest vehicle for him because he loves yogurt. He loves the taste of it.
That's great. And certainly anybody could use applesauce or pureed carrots or oatmeal. Mm-hmm. All sorts of different things can work to thin out the small amounts of food allergens.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that he can have, different textures, or he can have, just different foods, I have been crushing up walnuts and like sprinkling them on his yogurt, and just trying to give him some different textures and still make sure he's getting the allergens in.
Wonderful. So we have another question here. Do they see a decline in allergies since the early introduction to the little ones? And basically the reason that Tiffany tried this is that in 2020, the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which is the basis of federal nutrition policy in the United States, took a real deep look at what has been shown in the scientific literature, principally with peanut and egg, in early introduction around 4 to 6 months, eating in small amounts, and saw a dramatic drop in the development of food allergies to those foods. A British researcher had the idea that he'd seen that in Israel, they didn't see peanut allergy in infants and children. And what then the hypothesis of all of this was that this little thing, like kids in the United States eat Cheerios as little things as they develop their finger skills, and has a nice hole in it so you don't choke on it. But they have these little puffs, which would be probably equivalent to a Cheeto, that are called Bomba. And it's made with peanut butter and ground peanuts in it. And so that is the reason that was just it's a commonly consumed snack in Israel by the entire population. And that was the reason that they don't see food allergies. And then they did a experiment in Great Britain and proved it that you can reduce and stop the development of a lot of food allergies.
So we did have another question that came through, and we're not able to answer individual questions, but we can answer this as a more general question. So someone asked, I have a nephew who has an egg and dairy intolerance. Do you think this will turn into an allergy, or is this something he could potentially outgrow? And I can take a stab at this, and then if you have anything to add, just jump right in there, Bob. But of all of the top 9 allergens, and we're going to include sesame in this. We got another question too. So I'm like doing 2 things at once. Of the allergens of the top 9, egg and milk is it's very likely that a child will outgrow those 2 allergens. It's common in infants. Not really sure what the mechanism is for outgrowing of allergens, but usually if it develops in infancy, a lot of times, I think there's a stat out there, and I wish I had it in front of me, but outgrowing milk allergy by age of 12. And I believe egg is younger. For peanuts and tree nuts, fish and shellfish, if you have those allergies when you're younger, it's much less likely they will be outgrown, and more likely that they will be lifelong.
Right.
I feel like that answers it. Do you think that answered that question?
That sure does.
Yeah.
So the next question is, if you are allergic to sunflower seeds, can you have foods with sunflower oil in it? Well, that's a very good question, and that's a very good question about how oils are refined in the United States when they're used in commercial food production. So you have like soybean oil, which was specifically exempted because they have what is called refined, bleached, and deodorized food grade oils for manufacturing purpose. And pretty much all of the oil of like soybean oil that you would get in the supermarket in a container is going to be this RBD type of oil. And it is okay because it does not contain any protein because of the level of refinement. Now, if you were to buy something like walnut oil or even sesame oil, it's going to be generally cold pressed is what they call it. And that's going to contain protein because you're using those oils for the purpose of adding flavor to foods. And so, but there are, generally, while if you were, say, allergic to sunflower or allergic to soy or allergic to peanut, you likely very much could tolerate the oils that are used in food manufacture and what you would get in the supermarket. Does everybody do that in the practice? No, a lot of people will still avoid the oils, and that's okay because there are a whole lot of different things out there that don't fall into the top allergens or something, as the person that's asking the question notes, allergy to sunflower.
Oh, this one's for you, Bob. This one's for you. What are the requirements for labeling the top allergens in the US?
So we had a law passed called the Food Allergy Labeling and Consumer Protection Act. And back then, it covered the top 8 food allergens that Tiffany has described: milk, egg, peanut, tree nuts, finfish, crustacean shellfish, that's shrimp, lobster, crab, and soy and wheat. And then just it past year in 2021, a piece of legislation called the FASTER Act added sesame to make it the top 9 allergens. And so the goal of the prior legislation and the way it is implemented by the Food and Drug Administration is that Food ingredient statements on product labels must include common language terminology for the top 8, now top 9 food allergens, or both. After the ingredient box that you see on a package, they say contains, and then it would be like contains egg, comma, peanuts. And also, if you had tree nuts in something, it would have to also specify which tree nut or which tree nuts were in it. Same for fin fish, so salmon, cod, mackerel, tuna, and the same thing for shellfish, shrimp, lobster, crab. And so those are the requirements that are on the books, and have been for about 17 years now, with the Food and Drug Administration. And for meat and poultry products that are governed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture with their inspection requirements, they generally have adopted the same type of labeling as well as FDA regulated foods.
Yeah. And it's important to read labels every single time, because you never know when the manufacturer is going to change your formula, change your recipe, swap out different ingredients. Even different pack sizes may have different ingredients, or they may have precautionary or advisory labeling on there because they're made in different facilities. There are some products that are made in the US and internationally, and they are going to have different labeling requirements when they're made internationally, or they may even have different recipes if they're made internationally. So just
absolutely. And we can't underscore enough that you need to read the label every single time you purchase, because product formulations change, the recipes change. You see often new and improved or new flavor or different types of things out there in the marketplace. So it's best to always read the label. Another thing that we're going to see as sesame starts to appear on packages, because currently sesame is used as a flavor and or a spice in a lot of foods. And the regulations in the US have up until January 1st of 2023, but we've had a nice transition period from April of 2021 through to the end of 2022, where sesame would no longer be able to be lumped under natural flavors or spices that is allowed in food labeling regulations. So there will be a time that once we hit January 1, it's not going to be like a light switch that everything all of a sudden 100% of the foods have sesame called out properly, because there are going to be some things that have been in retail commerce and in the supply chain for some time, and the longer the shelf life, the longer it is. So if someone has a sesame allergy, it's really important as we move into 2023 to ensure that you read labels all the time, contact the manufacturer if you have questions. Food manufacturers get these types of questions all the time.
Mm-hmm. I used to call so many manufacturing companies when I was at the college campus just to confirm, just to double check, because sometimes it can be vague. You're absolutely right.
So we have another question here. Mm-hmm. How do I keep a healthy and balanced diet if I have multiple food allergens?
So as a dietitian, I would focus, obviously you need to pay attention to food labels. You need to make sure that you are avoiding these trigger foods, these culprit foods that you are allergic to, in order to avoid a reaction. However, when planning a diet or planning a menu, at the food shopping at the supermarket, focusing on the things that you can eat or that your family can eat is much more, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but the focusing on the things that you can eat, and then starting with the items that are maybe lower risk allergies. So fruits and vegetables, for example, we named the top 9 food allergens. There's not one fruit or vegetable in this top 9. So starting with the fruit and vegetable category, there's so many different grains out there right now that do not contain wheat. And I know we're not talking about celiac disease here, but there are other grains that don't contain those grains either. There are different meats, other protein sources. If you're not eating meat, there are other plant-based proteins out there now. It's not just soy. There's different beans and lentils, and so just focusing on the items or foods that you can eat. Obviously, like I said, you want to make sure that you're reading labels and avoiding those trigger foods, but there's still plenty of different food options, even with multiple food allergies, that you can focus on when you're planning a healthy meal.
And I would add to that, the one, and when you mention fruits and vegetables, those are, it's not any of the top 9. And generally there are less food allergies to specific fruits and vegetables. And so we, the one thing that all Americans can and should consume more of is fruits and vegetables, whether they're raw, salads, cooked, etc. That's one thing. And then, as Tiffany mentioned, there are lots of whole grains out there that are non-wheat that you can get fiber from. That fiber is really the best way to get fiber in your diet is from fruits and vegetables. And so that's a way that you can add balance, add variety, and try something new and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think in this journey to introduce so many different new foods to my son, because, introducing more diet diversity for him, I've started eating some new foods. I don't traditionally cook millet. I don't traditionally cook a ton of quinoa, but now I'm incorporating it because it's a great mix-in. It has good fiber. It's a different type of grain. And so I even have shrimp in my freezer right now, which I never would have because I don't really like it that much. So it in this journey to feed my son, we have also just started adding some new foods in. So I would focus on those foods. We got another question here. Great conversation. How can RD students interested in food allergy get more experience in this area?
I wonder where.
Yeah, reach out to us.
Yeah, as registered dietitians, I mean, this is an important area for all registered dietitians or dietetic technicians to be educated about, regardless of the area of practice. Food allergy, since dietitians are all about food, we really, it's exquisitely useful to know, and that ranges from care of infants in the pediatric population up through older adults. Because one area we haven't really talked about is need to be aware that food allergies can develop in adulthood. That someone, quite possibly, I could eat a peanut and possibly end up with a peanut allergy. I certainly hope not, as much as I like peanut butter, and that oftentimes shellfish allergy comes on in as we age during our lives. So it's very important that RDs can learn about food allergy, have a basic understanding, and there are tons of great resources with us at FAIR that you can dive into to learn more.
Yeah, you and I just gave a talk last week about the like older adults and the elderly population, and how dietitians that are traditionally working in that area may see a new onset of food allergies just as people start to get older, and we're not quite sure why that is, or if there is any way to prevent that. But we are here to help. So if you want to work with us, you let us know.
And you worked on another Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics book on content on food allergy. Mm-hmm. And we both just finished up a chapter on food allergy in the older adult for the Academy. So the Academy has resources. Some of it comes from FAIR. If you work with the school age population, FAIR collaborates with the Institute of Child Nutrition, which provides resources ranging from general nutrition to food safety, and including the important items on food allergy to educate school food service personnel around the country as well. So resources out there, and probably 8 times out of 10, FAIR's been plugged into it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. We did get another question. How do you feel about food testing trials? I'm assuming they're talking about an oral food challenge. Is it worth it to put a child at risk when they have a known allergy?
That's going to be an individual decision to be made, but there are, one, you get a truly definitive diagnosis, and you are ultra certain that if you are in a pediatric board certified allergist's office, and let's say it's peanut, the allergy, and you can, just the comfort one could have of having it not be the case. They will always be highly prepared with having injectable epinephrine. They're probably close to or adjacent to their doctor's offices, or probably by a medical center where there's an emergency room with epinephrine and such. So it is definitely worth it. Now, one thing we haven't talked about is that there is one treatment for young children and adolescents ages 4 to 17, which is essentially doing the feeding like an oral food challenge to desensitize for peanut allergy. And so, that you have to balance the risks. Yes, there are lots of people out there who have had an anaphylactic reaction to whichever food allergen, gone to the emergency room, and don't have it diagnosed with the gold standard of an oral food challenge, and then just continue to avoid it. But knowledge is power.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially as we talked about before, some children do outgrow certain food allergies. So if they had a food allergy when they were younger to milk, or had a food allergy to egg, and you want to see if they have outgrown these food allergies in order to broaden the diet, reduce nutritional deficiencies from these foods that you're avoiding, or just to kind of put your mind at ease, like you mentioned, because it can be very stressful. Then have a conversation with your doctor, weigh the risk benefits. If the child or parent are super anxious going into the oral food challenge, some of those symptoms can mimic a food allergy reaction. So sometimes they may do a blinded oral food challenge so that you're getting a placebo, or you're getting the allergen, but you're not sure which one, to kind of reduce some of that anxiety. Sometimes it can be double blinded. So, based on the nurse's face, you don't know which one you're getting. But I think it's definitely worth a conversation with your doctor,
Absolutely.
to add some other things into your diet, and then you don't have to unnecessarily avoid things. Yeah.
So we've got a couple of other questions that relate to milk allergy and other options in the quote dairy aisle, which is, that is a big issue, that there's all these plant-based quote milk products out there that can be made from nuts and other vegetables and legumes and those types of things. Mm-hmm. And then the follow-up question on this is, which quote non-dairy milk is the most nutritious? So navigating the dairy aisle, I would still recommend, and I'm sure Tiffany would as well, that you read the label every time. There's also an ingredient out there that's starting to gain some momentum in its use, where they've been able to create, through a fermentation process, casein and whey, two very common milk ingredients that are used in foods, particularly dairy-based or frozen desserts. And so, but it is just identical to what comes out of the cow. So it's still a food allergen. And there are a number of things that are, quote, vegan options in these non-dairy frozen desserts that are beginning to use the casein and whey that doesn't come from a cow. And Fortunately, the manufacturer of that requires and asks that the manufacturers that use the ingredient in a plant-based, non-dairy frozen dessert that they put on the front and the back contains milk allergen or contains dairy allergen. So there are some things you have to watch out for. Now, on the nutrition side, I'm going to kick it to Tiffany and let her wind that one up, and I'll chime in with some of my other RD thoughts.
I think it depends on what your definition of nutritious is. If you're looking for a milk that's very similar, so if you're looking for a milk alternative that's similar to cow's milk, I think soy is can go toe to toe with cow's milk. But if you're allergic to both cow's milk and soy, then there are a ton of other options out there. I would say some of the nut milks like almond or cashew are going to be pretty low on the protein scale. But if you are just using it for cereal, or if you're just using it to kind of thin some things out, then I think nut milks are fine. There are oat milks out there now, a lot of, or pea protein milks. The Ripple milk is pea protein. There's 4 or 5 different brands of oat milk now. Some of the oat milks, in order to boost the nutrition content, will have pea protein in there, and some of the nut milks will do the same thing. So you just really need to be careful if you are allergic to pea. There is full fat oat milk, there's light oat milk. So it just depends on what your definition of nutritious is, right, depending on the age of the patient or the age of the individual. Some may need more fat, some may need more protein, some may need less. So it's kind of a loaded question there, but there are a lot of alternatives.
But I think you hit the main thing, and that's after soy, the protein content drops often pretty dramatically in the other type of plant-based.
Unless it's fortified.
Unless it's fortified, but most, well, at least the profiles that I've seen don't really come close to being as competitive as soy in the protein department. Right. But keep in mind that whether it be soy milk or a nut-based milk or any other one, they all are fortified with calcium and other nutrients to mimic and be closer to the profile, the nutrition profile of fluid cow's milk.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many products out there, and you said the quote unquote dairy aisle. Now I'm glad that you brought up the non-animal protein milks or non-animal protein products like cream cheese or ice cream. I've seen that in there. But again, I guess the moral of the story is to always read the label every single time to ensure safety.
So we have our last question, and I'll let you start, Tiffany. If someone outgrows an allergy, can it come back later in life?
So to my knowledge, if someone naturally outgrows the food allergy, like an infant has a milk allergy and outgrows it as they get older, I do not believe that the food allergy can come back. However, if a patient has gone through oral immunotherapy, which is feeding small doses of the food allergen in order to train the immune system to be more comfortable with those food allergens, and you had mentioned that treatment before, if someone stops that treatment and then does not consume that allergen, even though they may have passed one of those challenges and seem to be cleared, that allergy can come back because it is continuous consumption of those food proteins that helps to, like I said, train the immune system and to lessen the response.
Not go all the way to full-blown anaphylaxis or have no reaction at all.
Right. Yeah. So I would say it kind of depends on how someone outgrew the allergy, whether it was like a natural, your body now has the ability, your immune system is not recognizing milk as an enemy anymore. But if you were going through OIT, oral immunotherapy, then if you stop that treatment, then it may come back. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
So with that answer, Tiffany, thank you. What a great way to kick off Food Allergy Awareness Week after Mother's Day yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we could host this Ask the Expert. That's hard to say. I do know we have another event tonight at 7 p.m., but we have so many exciting things going on this week. For more resources, please visit foodallergy.org and you can check out the schedule of events there as well. So have a great night.
Have a great night. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy Food Allergy Awareness Week.